go. All right. Hello, guys. Reading tonight, pages 471 to 473. Questions today, 13 through 18. All right. Miss Cassidy asked me a question. She's like, hey, Mr. Schmidt, are these study guides the first half going to be due today? And the answer is no. Instead, on Monday, we are going to have questions 1 through 20 due on Monday. So that is M with the day. Monday, we're going to actually have questions 1 through 20 due. So make sure you guys have those done. If you're behind, you got grace. Thank you, Lord. But yes, 1 through 20 on Monday. All right, let's get into these notes. I know you've probably been waiting for this all day. No, I know. Harding uses the spoil system. This is letter G. So we've talked about Harding. We've talked about his administration. We talked about how he's cut taxes, how he's cut the budget, and wow, we're not in debt. Holy cow. If you guys can remember, we had this conversation back in 1890. We actually were out of debt for a few brief hot seconds until Congress decided to use the extra money to spend more. So we're getting closer and closer to being out of debt again. But there's going to be some things that are going to happen that's going to kind of get rid of that. So anyways, letter G. Harding uses the spoil system, and in parentheses, that should be the Ohio gang. If you remember, the spoil system was started by Mr. Jackson, and since then, if you can remember back when we talked about the stalwarts and the half-breeds, the Republicans were actually debating back and forth whether or not they should use the spoil system anymore, or if it should be based on what people actually know called the merit system. Well, unfortunately, Mr. Harding decides to go back to the spoil system. It's called the Ohio Gang because these were friends and family members from his home state of Ohio. So all these folks that were part of his cabinet, that were part of his government, had come out with him from Ohio because of the spoil system. Now, this results in numerous scandals, like we've already said, right? Ever since we've had the spoil system, we always have scandals. The biggest one is at a Navy facility of Teapot Dome, Wyoming. And you guys have a picture of that there in your notes. And you can see all the oil rigs, and your question might be, what are they pumping oil for? They're pumping oil for the U.S. Navy. That is their point. That is their purpose. They're providing tons of oil to supply to our ships in the ocean. Unfortunately, now the spoil system, Secretary of the Interior, Albert Fall, that guy in the right there, Albert Fall sells oil company leases to the use of the oil reserves of the U.S. Navy. So the Secretary of the Interior, Albert Fall, sells oil companies leases to the use of oil reserves in the U.S. Navy. So, why do this? Well, he does this because he's going to make a lot of money off of this. Because technically speaking, all that oil is free. It's all free. It's U.S. government oil, and it's free. So when he sells this to the oil companies, they're still getting a great deal out of it. The U.S. government's actually pumping their oil for them. They don't even have to bother pumping the oil. They get the big giant drums of oil and they make a ton of money off of this. So they make money, Mr. Fall makes money, and everything is great, right? Well, unfortunately, no. When President Coolidge becomes president, after Harding's death, he will actually have Mr. Fall arrested. Now, haven't seen that a lot. We've been talking about all these scandals in U.S. history, and most of these guys walk away scot-free. Well, this guy actually went to jail. For how long? 1 year. All right? He went to jail for 1 year. Now, in addition to that, What else happened? Oh yeah, he paid back the money, right? The multi-millions of dollars that he got. Of course, he forgot where it was. He forgot. And since he forgot, guess what? The federal government said, oh, okay, oh well. So even despite the fact the guy went to jail for a year, he got to keep the millions. So once again, here goes the spoil system, right? Awesome. No, not really. Letter H, Harding and his administration will follow a policy of isolationism. This means the United States will avoid all efforts to involve itself in any alliances or any treaties that would commit U.S. troops to foreign wars. So isolationism means that the U.S. would avoid all efforts to involve itself in any type of alliances or any type of treaties that would commit our troops to a foreign war. If you guys can remember, during the First World War, one of the causes of the First World War was alliances, military alliances. So that was something, that just wasn't good, and we're trying to avoid this. Second point about this. So instead of having these alliances, instead we will lead efforts of disarmament, convincing other nations to join the U.S. in limiting the manufacturing of war materials. So instead of us committing to foreign wars, instead what we're trying to do is we're trying to lead efforts to disarm and convincing other nations to disarm as well, to limit the manufacturing of war materials. So we don't want to build guns anymore. At the Washington Conference in 1921, the U.S. pledges itself to limit the construction of battleships and other capital ships, like these brand new ships that they call aircraft carriers. So at the Washington Conference in 1921, the United States will pledge itself to limit the construction of battleships and other capital ships like aircraft carriers. Now, for some of you people that are big, giant military history people, you should know that there's one nation that did not join in this conference, and that was a country by the name of Japan. Japan will go to the conference, they'll find out what limits they're going to be placed on them, and then they walk out. They're done, and they will then go right back to Japan and build lots of these new ships called aircraft carriers. That's why it's going to be so hard for us to begin the fight during the Second World War, because we limited how many aircraft carriers we built. The Japanese, they just kept on building them left and right. A lesson to be learned. The U.S. will continue to pursue active trade. Now, that's one thing we're not going to give up. Remember, ever since we first set up that Monroe Doctrine, we never said that we didn't want to trade with other people. So, in fact, it will protect its goods with one of the largest tariffs ever, and it's one of my favorite names, the Fordney-McCuber tariff. The Fordney-McCuber tariff. This is one of the largest tariffs ever. What's it doing? It's protecting goods made in the United States. Europe in particular is angered because they owe large debts to the United States, and the only way they can pay back those debts is to sell their goods. Britain and France start requesting a cancellation of their debts. They said, hey, if you guys are going to put these big giant tariffs up, we can't sell our stuff in the United States, so fine, forget it. We're not going to pay you guys back for all that money that we owe you. We're not going to pay it back. By the way, Germany continues to struggle to pay back their war reparations. War reparations is money to pay for damages, damages supposedly caused solely by Germany. So Germany, the one nation that's still trying to pay back its debts, are saying, man, we're struggling, right? Can we get maybe some break like Britain and France? So with their own debt, they don't have the ability to pay back both. With their own debt, they don't have the ability to pay back their loans and debts, nor can they pay for these war reparations. So with their own debts, they don't have the ability to pay back these war reparations. So the United States and Britain will help them get their reparations reduced. The United States and Britain will help get their reparations reduced. Now, did Britain like that idea? Of course not. But who is their new big buddy that they always are trying to make happy? Well, if you haven't already figured that out, their new big buddy is us, right? They want to keep us happy, and they don't want to tick us off because we want to help the Germans try to pay back their debt. So we let them reduce it by $10 billion. By the way, who's not happy at all about this? France. France is fuming. They're screaming bloody murder. They can't believe that Britain and the United States is letting Germany off of $10 billion of payment back. And remember, once again, the Germans supposedly are the only ones that started this war, First World War, right? Okay, so reading 471 to 473, questions 13 through 18, and remember on Monday 1 through 20. All right, guys, have a good weekend. Bye, guys.